Hey guys, how are you? I want to talk about some of the experiences I had as growing up. Me and my grandma shared so many experiences as I was a child. She was kind of my bread and butter at home, helping take care of me while my parents were at work. And she always told me to focus on experiencing delight in every day, whether that be helping her tend to the weeds in the garden, whether that be helping wash the dishes at home. She always wanted me to focus on being happy and content. When I look at this photo, yeah, sure, it's one of the last photos I've had of her, and it's a material thing, but what's really important to me is the memories that are attached to this photo, the experiences my grandma left with me. And as I started thinking about this, we have this importance of making sure we design experiences not for ourselves, but for others. And when we die, as my Lola did, she didn't die leaving me with a bunch of stuff, leaving her children, her 7 grandchildren, everything was stuff. She left with us an amazing culmination of experiences. Merriam-Webster has a definition for experience that is the conscious events that make up an individual life. And this started getting me to think of what are the things that we leave behind as humans when we die. It's not our things. We're not defined about the property we had, not defined by the greenest grass we owned, not defined about the size of our house, but it's the memories, the connections, and all the experiences we have and the legacies we leave behind. So when I started thinking about what I'm doing with you guys today, it's typical oral tradition. Humans have been doing this since the beginning of time, and what we do is we pass down these experiences. We pass down these lessons and stories in hopes to design a better world for the next generations. We always have our parents tell us, I've worked hard, I've lived through all these tough experiences, so you don't have to, so you can have a better life than I have. When I started thinking more on that outside of my personal life, I started thinking of human history. Early humans were hunters and gatherers. We were spending majority of our time night and day making sure we had a place to stay. We made sure we had food. When the agricultural revolution came around, this allowed for human beings to be able to settle down for once in our history. We were able to develop new industries, our population boomed. People could focus on storytelling, figuring out why we're here in the earth, and figuring out what can we do to make things better. When you fast forward to the Industrial Revolution, you start thinking about the mass automation of commodities. We're not just sitting down farming anymore. We're mass producing everything, houses, materials, more food. This led to even more rise in population, even more experiences for us to experience. Then you fast forward all the way to tech. I know we're kind of time traveling here, but when you think of tech, it's really easy to define user experience. We talk about defining better apps, better experiences, easier to use. We just think of changing industries as a whole, like what Airbnb did the hotel business, what Uber has done for taxi. All these were led to make great experiences. They weren't here to make monetary value. They weren't here just to serve a function, but all these ideas came out of an idea that we want to make human life better. And as I talk about tech, I do want to kindly remind everyone that experience is not just in tech. Like I said, it's easy for us to define it, but it's in every other industry that we have. When we think of food, we have so many different types of experiences for restaurants. We have fast food for a quick, easy bite. We have family restaurants that cater to the experience of having kids as young as 2 all the way to senior citizens. And we have 3-star Michelin restaurants, which are all focused on the highest end of dining as a journey. When we look at architecture, this is a great example of what I'm talking about. 3 of the main principles are form, function, and delight. Form being how well built a building can be. Function is how well does it serve this function, and how delightful does it give the user an experience. So when we think about this room, the form is great. This is one of the best high schools I've honestly ever been in. The function does an amazing job facilitating education and facilitating a presentation like this. When we think of the delight about this, it's calm, it's cool, the sound's great, presentation's great, sure. So, like I said, when we start thinking of other things like that, we start thinking about designing experiences, critically thinking about the form, function, delight of things. When we look at industries like highway and road design, this is something everyone can agree on, that there's a lot of days where I'm an angry driver. And there's a lot of things we can do now, right now, about changing our highways and roads. It's not just relying on Tesla to make an automated experience where we're not even driving anymore. It's not up to Lamborghini or Ferrari making us exotic and accessible luxury cars built on thrills. We can start doing this now. I had the opportunity to work with Matt Miller, a local artist, on this 300-foot mural on probably one of the most crazy, busy, maybe the most angry sections of town too, on this amazing mural. And Matt had this amazing idea that we weren't just going to design something that was only aesthetically beautiful, one of the 3 principles, but we're going to serve a function and we're going to bring some delight to the users. He designed a calm, pink backdrop to bring some like warm friendliness to this concrete jungle on the street. He provided some feminine imagery to bring calm, relaxing energy, to calm the drivers, including me, to get home safe and not worry about getting home. And we have put the landscape at the bottom to make sure that we know our place in our natural ecosystem. When I start thinking of the bigger picture outside of just this small little section on this one road in our giant town, I start thinking that cities have a bigger responsibility. Cities have a responsibility to focus on the experience. Jeffrey Eugenides, in his book Middlesex, he has a great point about this. Planning is for the world's great cities, for cities dedicated at some level to culture. He was speaking about the great cities like Paris and London, how those cities from the birth of them were always focused on experience and culture. Meanwhile, American cities like Detroit, with a strict focus on monetary gain, end up falling flat because the citizens there end up not having a reason to stay. Why would you want to stay somewhere if all it is work and churn and function? I want to enjoy my life. So, as you can see, this is the part where I really hopefully want to get you to go do something about it now. After my grandma passed, I started having some weird early midlife crisis, and I had this crippling life, death anxiety. All I could focus on was my destination, that one day I was going to die. I wasn't focusing on living my life now. I wasn't focused on designing my life for the better. I wasn't focused on designing an experience for myself that was great. I was going downhill. And this is where I want to pass the torch to you, just like oral tradition throughout histories did, just like my grandma did to me, just like my parents did to me. I want to tell you that you can design your own experience. When I was going through this, my great friend, Canon McNair, colleague, he would always say this phrase to me in hopes to cheer me up. We aren't guaranteed tomorrow, so enjoy today. And what it did is it started getting me to really critically think about what I was doing with my life. I was just sitting there bummed out at home, not thinking about what I wanted to do. All I could think of was when I was going to die. And I started realizing with what he was saying that I have no entitlement to having a long-lived life. There's no reason that I'm guaranteed to live till I'm 95. I could die today. I could die in a car accident. I could suddenly fall ill. And I started to realize that I needed to do this now and not later. In the Joe Rogan podcast, the infamous one with Elon Musk, they're starting to discuss that, if we do make it through all this trials and tribulations between countries, and if the earth does get on board together as one unified society, we're still going to have to deal with some of the things in the universe. The eventual supernova of our sun that's going to destroy Earth and the rest of the inner solar system. And then the unfathomable far future in quadrillions and quadrillions of years with the heat death of the universe that will literally end literally everything as we know it. It will end. And so Ellen says, eventually it's going to end. It's just a question of when. So it really is all about the journey. And something struck me about this. It wasn't that my destination of dying was going to be something. It wasn't the fact that I was a human being with a temporal lifespan and I was going to eventually die. It was the journey that I wanted to build now and this idea of building into the future. And just like Elon, he wanted to design a life for himself with joy. He wasn't going to wait around. And he designs experiences for people. Tesla is built out of experience. The Boring Company is built all out of experience. And he wanted to build a system that, it's not just for living today, it's for building for tomorrow. And so if we can focus on designing an amazing life for ourselves, we're not only going to get an amazing personal fulfillment on life if we focus on form, function, delight, but what we can do is make long-lasting experiences that will continually make humankind better, for better or for worse. So, thank you.